You're listening to John the Recruiter podcast, JTR, where we discuss everything recruiting. If you're looking to get into recruiting or to become a re-energized recruiter, stay tuned and be prepared to be motivated. Welcome to John the Recruiter podcast. Today we have a very special episode. I have invited a few special guests, special to me, most important in my world, and what made me relentless. My wife, Angie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
My son, Bailey.
Glad to be a part of the John the Recruiter podcast.
And my daughter, Riley.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Why are they on here, you might ask? Well, I wanted them on here to discuss drive and motivation. We have discussed how, in recruiting, you need that drive and motivation to be successful, right? I wanted to share why I am so motivated and why I stay that way. Well, let's start with Angie. We have almost reached 30 years mark of marriage, and you raised these two while I was gone a lot. You now have 2 years of college completed and made Phi Theta Kappa in the Dean's List each semester at your university. And then Bailey, or Angie Cox, currently serving on the USS Cole DDG-67 as the main propulsion officer for the engineering department, with almost 6 years in the Navy, and also a graduate of Eastern Kentucky University with a Bachelor's of Science in Homeland Security. And Riley, a current Navy spouse of Petty Officer Brown, serving aboard the USS Virginia submarine out of Groton, Connecticut, attending Point University, completing your master's degree in business administration from Point University, which I already said, this May. And also a graduate of the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and a 9-year Chick-fil-A, which we all love Chick-fil-A, employee and current nanny. Welcome to the show, you three.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So we're all together, which doesn't happen too often. So I wanted these three to discuss what drives and motivates them to be successful. So I'm very blessed to have people around me that support and motivate me to keep going. And these are the three that do that for me. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's start by, what do you think drives and motivates you three to keep going, to be this successful so far in your life?
Well, I would say that it's to leave a better life for those beyond us. I look at my parents, you and Mom, Angie, and I think about what you guys grew up with and the family that you allowed us to have. And I want to take that and extrapolate it for the next generation. So that's what drives me to be successful.
I would agree with that. I know we've had conversations previously about that, just seeing where you guys came from and what you did with it. That's what Aaron and I always talk about, is how, yes, we both had good lives growing up, but we want to make it better for our family as well.
And I think both for me and your mom, at one point in your guys' life, we took you around and showed where we met, where we came from. And, it wasn't as bad as what other people have had in their lives, but it wasn't as good as maybe what we created as a family. And to see what you guys have created for yourselves, we're very proud. And we're very fortunate as parents, too. And I think even seeing what you guys do still motivates me as being 50 years old. And even for your mom going back to school now, it motivates her because we don't have to do those things. And I think it helps us too.
It does. And that's what has driven me, is being a parent to the kids and watching all that they've accomplished. And honestly, never really thinking I could accomplish going to school and getting good grades. And I have done that. And it's rewarding at 50 years old to be able to do that.
I thought you were 29.
Well, sorry to burst your bubble, honey.
And even now, like, it's kind of funny because it still makes it a competition. And I think that's the recruiter in me, is I still like the competition. And even though you're our children, there's still a little bit of drive and motivation in me to keep competition. Not that I'm trying to beat you, but that you don't want to let your family down still. And not that you guys would care if I just sat back with a tiki drink and did nothing the rest of my life. But, like, it's still that drive and motivation of me not to let you guys down. And I think you guys still have some of that in you, where like, even if you ended where you were at today, you know that we wouldn't be disappointed in you, but your own drive and motivation within yourself drives you to just keep going and be better and better. What do you do when you feel things are not going exactly as you plan? What are things that you do to like get back on track, or how do you deal with that?
Well, I think planning is an important part of that. If you plan out everything in life, you always have a backup plan and a backup plan to the backup plan. So then when something happens and it doesn't go your way, you say, I already mapped this out. I'm going to take this alternate route instead. That's how I do it, is I just plan for every outcome.
Yeah, I agree. I think being prepared for any type of situation is super beneficial. I feel like if you do plan, especially when you're, say, recruiting, then you're more prepared for it.
Well, and just going through what I've gone through with having a husband in the Navy for so long and deploying, I always expected the worst but prayed for the best and learned to be good in a crisis and stayed strong for my children. And when it would come to something like recruiting per se, just work your hardest, strive to be the best.
Yeah, and I think the planning and, always know that hope for the best, but things can happen, knowing things can happen. And I talked in earlier episodes about you have to plan and plan your work your plan. That's the best way to do it. And if you don't have a plan, if you go at life blindly, or you go at your job blindly, it's going to be so hard. And, it's good to hear that you guys plan that way. You all know about recruiting. I've been in recruiting my whole life. You guys have been around it. I think any one of you could go be a successful recruiter right now. What advice would you give to someone that listens to my show that maybe is just getting into recruiting? How can they go about it and be relentless?
I think one of the main things is be approachable. Part of being a recruiter is being outgoing and learning how to work really well with people. And I think when you're approachable, it makes people kind of see like, oh, I shouldn't be nervous to talk to this person or learn from this person. And I think a lot more people will be comfortable with you if you're more approachable.
Yeah, and have confidence in yourself. Be knowledgeable about what it is that you're selling. I mean, it's sales, essentially. And the more knowledgeable you are, the better you will be.
I think you also have to be resilient. You're not going to get a yes every time, or you're not going to have a contact or a prospect turn into a hire every time. But you have to be able to go back out there and talk to more people and apply the like economies of scales philosophy to recruiting. Don't just go out and knock on 2 doors, knock on the whole neighborhood, and keep it going no matter how many no's or negative outcomes you get. Just keep working for your mission.
Very true.
Well, and also know that you don't have to work at it alone. You have a team and use that to your advantage. And a lot of businesses, teamwork is a very important thing, and you shouldn't have to only rely on yourself.
It's funny how like you guys are not in recruiting, but a lot of stuff in life in general can relate back to recruiting. And even though you're not in recruiting, it's kind of like you are anyway, because a lot of stuff that you do in your everyday life, the recruiting skills can help relate to that too. So I want to thank all of you guys for being a part of my show. I really appreciate it. I was so honored to have you guys on here. I want to thank all of you for listening to this episode and meeting my family. And don't forget to follow me and let me know your thoughts. So remember, stay motivated and be relentless, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the JTR podcast. I retired in 2018 from the United States Navy as a Master Chief, and most recently was a Director of Recruiting for a company with over 80,000 employees. With over 25 years of experience in recruiting and recruiting leadership in some of the most challenging fields and markets. Stay tuned for more tips to be relentless. Stay motivated.